Call the regular meeting of the New Ulm City Council for Tuesday, July 16, 2019, 4:30 PM to order. First item on the agenda is your consent agenda items. What's your wishes?
I'll offer a motion to approve those.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items. Any discussion on any? Seeing none? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 2.1, public hearing on noise variance for the New Ulm Small Business Group. Chris?
So, the small business group wants to do a street dance on Saturday, July 27th, from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. And so they're requesting a noise variance to have amplified music after 9 p.m. I did not receive any phone calls or written complaints about this noise variance, so we can open up the public hearing.
Okay, it's a public hearing. Anybody like to be heard? Anybody? Anybody on the city council have anything they want to add or share?
No?
No?
I will make a motion to close the public hearing and offer the resolution waiving the reading, closing the public hearing, and authorizing the noise variance permit to amplify music on Minnesota Street from Center Street to First North Street for New Ulm Small Business Group Street Dance, Saturday, July 27th, 8 to 12.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on it?
We just didn't get any, nobody responded, nobody, okay, I assume that. Thank you.
Seeing none? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh.
Resolution.
roll
A
call.
resolution. Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mann?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item 2.2, public hearing on the final assessment rules for the 2018 surface reconstruction project. Mr. Kaler?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a project from last summer, 2018, 12 blocks of surface reconstructed by city forces. The city street department removed the blacktop and repaved the roadways. We have sent out notices to 62 parcels with regard to these special assessments. They're basically $1,485 per residential unit, payable over 10 years if they so choose to carry it for 10 years at 4.4% interest. I have not received any written comments with regard to this hearing, so you could open it up.
This is a public hearing. Anybody like to be heard on the assessment rules? On any of them?
Mr. Chair, the 4.4% that's the first time I've seen it get that high. Is that, where do we get that number from? Can you talk about that just a little
Yeah,
bit?
Mr. President, that's tied into the bond issue that finances the project. I believe state statute, Nicole can take over if I tell you something that's incorrect. State statute allows the council to set the interest rate at or below 2% above what the bond issue was sold for. So it is actually a council resolution that sets these amounts, which was done last year.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else like to be heard? Seeing none, entertain a motion.
I'll offer a resolution, waive the reading, closing the public hearing, adopting the final assessment roll for the 2018 surface reconstruction project payable over a 10-year period, along with 4.4 simple interest charge on the unpaid balance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to offer the resolution, waive the reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Let's back up here. A public hearing on the final plot of Oak Bluffs 8th edition. Mr. Schnobert.
Dave Schnobert, Community Development Director. The applicant and property owner in this case is the Diocese of New Ulm. The property to be platted is generally located in the vicinity of the pastoral center. The portion of property to be platted is currently being farmed or it's vacant. property is zoned R3. Some of the property that's zoned R3, though, is subject to a requirement that, depending upon the land use, would require a conditional use permit. The plat will have 2 lots and a cul-de-sac at the end of 6 North Street. Currently, there are 2 lots there. So basically what they're doing is moving a property line. There are no outstanding conditions. Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval at their June 27th meeting.
Thank you. It's a public hearing. Anybody like to be heard? I see nobody. Entertain a motion.
I'll offer a motion to close the public hearing, waive the reading, and approve the final plat of Oak Bluffs 8th Edition, generally located 1407 to 1446 6th North Street.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to offer the resolution, waive the reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none. Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item 2.4, public hearing on the final plot of Palmer Edition. Dave?
In this particular case, the applicant and the property owner is the state of Minnesota and the city of New Ulm. The city is administratively responsible for the platting of the property through a joint powers agreement with the Minnesota Army National Guard. Property is located south of US Highway 14 and west of the airport. Property is currently being farmed. Platted area totals 31.24 acres. There is 1 lot, and then there is street right-of-way that is being platted. There are no outstanding conditions associated with the plat, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval with conditions at their June 27th meeting.
Thank you. Public hearing. Anybody like to be heard?
Let's talk
Seeing
to
none.
people.
Entertain a motion.
I'll motion to close the public hearing, offer resolution, waive the reading, approving the final plat of the Palmer Edition, generally located at 2000 to 2250 Palmer Avenue. Do you want, Dave, with conditions from the Planning Commission?
There are no conditions.
Oh, there were, okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to offer the resolution, waive the reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none. Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 2.5. Public hearing on the extension of the Minnesota Investment Fund compliance date for craft. Mr. Schnobert.
Okay, the city of New Ulm was a recipient of, I'm going to refer to it as MIF, Minnesota Investment Fund grant from the state of Minnesota in the amount of $435,000, and this was through the Department of Employment and Economic Development, and this occurred in March of 2016. So it's a grant from the state to the city. Okay, the city then loaned that amount of money to Kraft Heinz Foods Company for facility improvements at 2525 Bridge Street. The amount that was loaned is a forgivable loan if Kraft meets certain job goals and investment goals. So there were a variety of project requirements for both the city and Kraft. The project goals for Kraft included an investment requirement of $20 million, which they exceeded. And then there was a job requirement goal that they retain 361 full-time equivalent positions, and they create 50 new full-time equivalent positions. And those positions were to have a base wage of $17 per hour and fringe benefits of $6 per hour. The grant contract and associated documents established a compliance date for those goals of May 1, 2019. And as of May 1, 2019, Kraft had retained 361 jobs, but had only provided 26 of the 50 new positions. If Kraft does not meet the goal, they are required to repay an amount based on the number of jobs that are not created. So the program regulations for MIF allow for Kraft to request an extension in order to meet their job goal. That process requires a public hearing on the part of the city council. If granted, it would be for 1 year, and it would extend the compliance date to May 1, 2020. And there's also an expiration date. That's the date by which everything is supposed to be completed, and that new date would be August 1, 2020.
Okay, thank you, Dave. This is the public hearing, if anybody likes to be heard. We do have a gentleman here from Kraft, the manager, if he'd like to speak. Just name and address just for the record, please.
Matt Hippie, plant manager at Kraft Heinz in New Ulm. I live at 200 Partridge Paths in Mankato. Just come down to, we appreciate all the business. We've been a part of the community for 65 years. A couple reasons for not hitting the employment. One was the volume for Velveeta that was originally stated in 2016 was slightly down. On the second note, and in New Ulm fashion, the plant outseated its productivity goals by a large amount, which required less labor hours than originally was planned. So we're asking for a year extension to try and meet the other employment goals. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
I have one for our Community Development Director. Have we started the process already with the state of Minnesota?
They're aware that of the request for the
Okay.
extension, so we have been working with the state.
All right.
Anybody else? Public hearing, anybody want to be heard?
Nobody wants to talk tonight.
Well, I guess I'll make a comment. I appreciate everything Kraft has done, and I have no problem with this extension, so.
I don't either. I'll
I have no issue, so.
motion to close the public hearing, offer a resolution, waive the reading, approving the request of Kraft Heinz Foods Company for a 1-year extension of the compliance date for the job and wage goals associated with their Minnesota Investment Fund, MIF, project.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to offer resolution, waive the reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
I know. Should be a max in public hearing.
Okay.
One more public
Item,
hearing.
yep, here we go. Item 2.6, public hearing for the use of tax abatement for Kareen Incorporated. Dave?
Okay, Kareen Incorporated is doing business as Windings Incorporated. The city council at its June 19th, 2018 meeting received notice from Kareen that they were proceeding with plans to consolidate their business operations from 3 locations within the community to 1. And that location that they were going to consolidate business operations, that was the former LK building at 15 Thompson Street. Windings requested city financial assistance for the project in the form of either tax increment financing or tax abatement. Following review of those 2 funding options, the decision was made that tax abatement would be the most appropriate route to go. A public hearing is required in order to establish a tax abatement program. The project itself involves the renovation of the LK building that's currently underway, as well as a building addition of approximately 10,000 square feet. A tax abatement, a program, allows the city to rebate a portion of the property taxes and use those proceeds to offset development costs. The city currently has 3 tax abatement programs in place. A permitted use of tax abatement is general economic development resulting in the increase of the community's tax base. The maximum amount of abatement to be provided is $356,280. Of that amount, up to $4,000 would be utilized by the city of New Ulm to pay for the filing fee for tax abatement. The remainder would be presented or used by Corrine for their development costs. I should note that the maximum annual abatement amount is $17,814. The term of the tax abatement program is normally 15 years. If either the county or the school district decides that they do not wish to participate in the tax abatement program, and they notify us in writing of that fact, we can increase the term of the program to 20 years. In this particular case, School District 88 has advised us that they would not intend to participate in the program. They did, however, note that they do support economic development in New Ulm. I would note that the last tax abatement program that we did was for DLC, and we received a similar letter from the school district at that time, and so that particular program is also has a term of 20 years. The first abatement would take place with taxes payable in 2021. The actual payment would be made in February of 2022. As part of the tax abatement process, Corrine would need to enter into a business subsidy and development agreement with the city. That is an item on the agenda later on. Corrine has pledged to retain a total of 104 full-time equivalent positions in the community. And then they also will create 7 jobs with a minimum wage of $14 per hour and 5 jobs with a minimum wage of $17 per hour. And those jobs need to be retained for the life of the tax abatement program.
Thank you, Dave. It's a public hearing. Anybody like to be heard? Anybody in the council? Questions? Nope.
I certainly support this. I think when we have tax abatement in a project like this, what a great way for Windings to expand from 3 buildings into 1 and be a lot more economical for them. And so I look forward to these additional jobs. I'm going to have to say I'm not real happy with the school district bowing out of the last time, bowing out this time. It takes all of us to develop this, a community and grow our industry. And for them to back out, I'm sorry, I don't think that's the way we should be moving forward, but that's just my opinion. So I was really disappointed when I read that letter. But, with that, I will.
Dave?
If I could
Oh,
just
yes.
note that the school district's decision also has a benefit in that it allows us to go from 15 years to 20 years. And financially, that is a benefit then to Corrine.
Thank you, Dave.
Takes a village. With that, I'll offer a motion to close the public hearing, waive the reading, and approve the use of tax abatement for Corrine project at 15 Sumpson Street.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to offer the resolution, waive the reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item 3.1, temporary liquor license for the New Ulm Area Chamber of Commerce, and that's for Saturday, October 5th, and Saturday also October 12th.
I'll offer the motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 3.2, liquor permit athletic events for Black Enterprises LLC.
I'll offer the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and that's for a one-year period, July 17th through June 30th, 2020. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 4.1, update on the railroad crossing. Chris?
So this has been an item that's been ongoing for about a little over 2 years. It's been an item that as long as I've been here, and I know a lot of counselors have been receiving phone calls about the conditions of the railroad crossings. And so one, I'd like to start out and just say, a lot of misinformation is out there in the public that the city doesn't own the railroad crossings. They're not ours to maintain. It is solely the responsibility of the railroad to fix those crossings. We can't touch the railroad crossings even if we wanted to, and I wouldn't want the city to go out there and fix them and then have the liability of a train derailing, because we didn't do it right. So with that, I'd like to go over kind of the timeline of what we've been doing since about 2017, the end of 2017, and that was at that time the former city manager Brian Gromans had emailed the CP manager of Public Works and didn't receive a response from them, and that's kind of been the pattern for a lot of the time up until now, where the city manager at the time would email CP and not get a response. And when we finally would get a response from someone, we would then ask city engineer, Mr. Kaler, to interact with the individual that we got information from. So moving down, it was always kind of the same kind of story where, okay, we'll look into it. CP would be like, okay, we'll look into it. We'll find the person responsible. And then that person would no longer be there, or, oh, you need to contact someone else. And so eventually in September of 2018, we got a hold of Mr. Ben Hader, who is the roadmaster for CP. And that's kind of been our point of contact with CP at this point in time. And it's kind of been the runaround like, oh, we have the railroad timbers ready to go, and then all of a sudden there's no railroad timbers, or we don't have the funding to do that. So around May, I had called Mr. Harder and got kind of verbal okay that he would do 3 railroad crossings in New Ulm. We figured 20th South, I think it was 20th South, North Minnesota, South Valley, and 7th South were kind of the 4 that were really in need of fixing. Ben said he was able to get approval for 3, and barring any additional work with asphalt, they may be able to do the 4th, but they were going to focus on the worst ones first. So again, their discretion on which ones they're going to do. We just said, like, here are the 4 that are really bad, and sent them photos. So that was kind of the last communication that I had with Mr. Harder. Kurt Curry had reached out to him and asked for a schedule, and one has not been provided. And then in June, Mr. Kaler reached out to Bob Rickert from MnDOT Officer Rail, and they said we should contact again Jim Krieger regarding this matter to help move it forward. So in July, Mr. Kaler reached out to Jim Krieger requesting his help on that, and Mr. Krieger replied that he was retiring, and we should reach out to Brian Osborne. And then right after that, Mr. Kaler received an email from Brian Osborne, a fairly good email saying that they would review and handle this situation. And so that's kind of where we are today. And I don't like to sit here and tell you, let's wait and see, but they have been approved for those 3 crossings. And I think we should give them at least till August or September to see if they can actually move forward and complete those crossings and start work before we look at other avenues and options, because having a relationship with CP is something we need to have. Because if we sit there and we hammer away and we do something that, forces their hand. They may just do the 3 crossings, and 5 years later we may see them again, and that only gets 3 of the crossings. And I rather have them do 3 crossings a year than 3 crossings every 5 years, or when they get bad, or when something really bad happens. So at this time, I ask for patience, because we have actually gotten some really good emails and some responses moving in the right direction, and come September or October, if nothing has been done, we'll look at other avenues. But this is a relationship I would still like to maintain and foster, to make sure when stuff happens, we can reach out to them and get these problems fixed.
Thank you, Chris. Anybody have any questions for Chris?
I appreciate your optimism, but I'm not as, this goes back, I think I've been on the council 11 years now, and this is 11 years old, not a couple years old.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I know Councilor Webster dealt with this issue because a lot of the crossings were in her area, now in your area, and it's just so frustrating because they say they're going to do it. Yes, we're going to be there next week. We promise, and then nobody shows up, and they don't answer emails. And so we've tried the nice route so many times, and I'm willing to give them another shot. But, I'm not going to hold my breath as long as you will. But I'm wondering if there's something our city our councilor can do with this. As far as pushing the envelope a little more from our city attorney to. Because it's a dangerous intersection. We know these boards go up when people cross, and we know someone's going to get hurt there. It's just a matter of time.
My question is, all right, maybe I'll agree to play nice for 2 more months, but I agree with Councilor Schultz. This has been 10, 15 years, not 2 years. I mean, I dealt with it when I was a building official. I have a question for the city attorney. At what point, after going through this Office of the Reviser and statutes, do we get a hold of the commissioner's determination?
Well, I just was going to say,
Yeah.
President Schmitz and councilors, the research I've done on this, there's 2 possible avenues we could pursue. There is a state railroad commission. There are also federal railroad inspectors. I don't have the contact information for them, but I agree this has been going on a long time. We've been getting put off by the railroad, and I don't know that it would be out of line to communicate with the railroad and indicate that we're going to give them a deadline. Because if we're already in mid-July, if we get into late August or September and they haven't done it, well, then now it's going to be snowing and it's going to be winter. It's going to push it into 2020. So if we were to give them a deadline by September 1st or something like that to get it done, I mean, this isn't rebuilding the railroad.
Right.
It's some work, but it's not that
Yeah.
big of a deal. And that if they've not got it taken care of, we're going to have to report it to the state board and the federal inspectors to get them involved, because they can take action. I mean, they could fine, they could impose penalties, and we certainly would like to have a good relationship with the railroad, but these tracks run through New Ulm, so they're going to keep coming through here no matter what. So I think that, in my opinion, that would be totally appropriate. We aren't necessarily suing them or getting them into trouble, but I think they need a deadline.
I mean, I understand the city manager's comment about, they might never come back again. Well, they haven't been back here in 10, 15 years. Sorry, they haven't. It's ridiculous to have your railroad crossings look like that. I mean, I myself flipped one of those 8x8s back in one morning when it was laying there. Should have I let a car hit it? No, but I'm, as I said, I'll play nice for another month or 2, but after that, I want to push.
It's almost like they're waiting for something bad to happen. I mean, that's just how I feel anyway. It's just
That was close. With the gentleman that his motorized chair got caught.
Yeah.
That was really close.
And I did, at some point you just got to say enough's enough, and we have to push a little harder.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I don't disagree with the sentiment around this table. I'm certainly as frustrated as anyone, and I've received several calls and emails from less than knowledgeable individuals that don't understand the process. But I'd just like to say, when I talked to this gentleman in June from the Minute Office of Rail, he indicated that there was going to be a substantial turnover in the management of the maintenance department and thought it would be for the better. So, and that's when the next email, the gentleman said, I'm transitioning into retirement, this is the new guy. So, I frankly would like to give him a few more weeks, and I understand, you know, everyone's reluctant to do that, but I feel like it's finally turning around. I guess we'll see. And with regard to safety, I'm not so concerned about a board flipping up or a wheel getting flat. It's when people they're not looking for the train because they're trying to find the board that'll support their tire. So that's the safety concern, that someone's going to get run over and killed. So that I think we can push if we need to.
I guess I'm okay with that if staff really feels they want to wait until September 1st. I don't know if you give them a deadline, or are you thinking that you just want to wait until September 1st until we respond again, or see what happens if you get correspondence within the next month, or?
To me, it's really maintaining contact with them and see if there is, really any progress, the movement of them actually coming out to do something. Because, we can sit here and email back all day long. And I mean, we have at least 2 years of emails, since I've been here, of just emailing back and forth of, yes, we can do this at some point, but a schedule really never comes out. So if really no action is, taking place by September 1st or so.
No, we're not going to wait until September 1st. We'll continue to poke the bear, but I don't want to use the club on the bear just yet.
So.
But
I
don't you
agree
think a
with
deadline
that.
would move our request up the ladder? Up their ladder, I mean?
Probably not. I think most of their crews are down south in the flooded areas. That's kind of the feedback I've been getting. But it's not an excuse. They've got to figure it out.
Have they been out to do any inspection throughout our community, or they're just going by the pictures that we've identified?
There was a gentleman, and I've lost track of the dates here, that came out and inspected those 4 crossings that we had requested. There's a note in here that they had to order 182 plank. That's how bad they are to repair them, and then the planks didn't come, and now they're in Springfield, and now we don't have the money, and he'll email back, well, we can ask the city council, how much do you need? And then we never got a reply, so it's kind of been the scenario.
I know this was a conversation in our work session, I believe in May, when we asked about it for a railroad update, and then I also brought up that 3 of those lines are supposed to be maintained by the co-op, and that'd be potentially that they're responsible for maintaining their crossings on the street. Have we made any contact with them in regards to their crossings, like on Valley Street?
I have not reached out to Hansco, the Hansco.
My discussions with the railroad is that the railroad would have to have an agreement with the spur line, not the city and the spur line owner. So the railroad is aware of it, and they indicated they would work on that. Okay.
And I think we also have to take a look at our sidewalks that are crossing these railroad tracks, because there's some significant, increases in heights there. We're asking everybody else in the community to follow our, rule of thumb with the sidewalks, and they've got some pretty serious trip hazards for sidewalks across, like on First North.
Those are all included in the transition plan, but we can take a harder look at them.
So the question for the city engineer, too early that I want it back on the first meeting in August?
I was just gonna say second
No,
meeting.
that's no problem. We'll continue. I'll try and reach out to this last email and see if they've gotten to the person that they were escalating it to, and just keep poking them.
All right.
Let them know we're getting crabby.
We are
Community
crabby.
is. The community is as well,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? I think we're on the right track, so we'll take it from there. We'll go to item number 5.1. Consider resolution approving the development agreement with Karen Incorporated. Mr. Snowberg.
Okay, as is common with the establishment of any tax abatement program or tax increment financing district, there also is an associated development agreement. In this particular case, the agreement has been reviewed by the city attorney and by representatives of Corrine, and it's in acceptable form. And so the final step is to secure city council approval.
Thank you, Dave.
I'll offer the resolution to waive the reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to offer resolution, waive the reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none? Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item 5.2, German Park Amphitheater Plans and Bidding. Mr. Schmitz.
Tom Schmitz, Park and Recreation Director, President Schmitz, counselors. Back in 2012, you authorized Bolton and Mink to prepare the concept plan for the Performing Arts Center in German Park. And then just a few months ago, March 19th of this year, you authorized Bolton and Mink to prepare the construction documents. Those are done, and we are presenting those to you this evening for your approval, and it's ready to be bid out. So with that said, I'm going to introduce Jonathan Nelson, from the landscape architect from Bolton and Mink, and we're going to go through a little presentation on the design. We have the schedule in front of you, and it's in your packet. The proposed schedule is up here on the screen, which is just, coming right in front of us here. August bidding and a possible award depending upon bid opening and your feelings in September. And then here are renditions of the Outdoor Performing Arts Center Amphitheater, a modest landscaping plan, a full electrical plan for staircase lighting and safety lighting, including audio-visual conduits and cabling for a multitude of different performing arts presentations. There's a view looking down towards the amphitheater from German Street. Kind of a side view looking to the New Ulm North over to 3rd Street. Top row, the fully handicap accessible areas will be the top row and the bottom row with a single central staircase. A view up towards New Ulm West from the stage looking at the amphitheater. Railings appropriate up to code, ramps and railings. We are planning to use Artstone in product for the tiers, the seating tiers. So that is kind of the overview, and it's ready to have your approval to proceed with the bid process.
Can you talk a little bit about the funding, where we're at financially for this project?
Yes, President Schmitz and counselors. The estimate now for construction in the bid package is that $700,000 range. $770-some thousand, and to date, $457,725 has been received in cash or pledged. Fundraising continues with the Friends of German Park. Executive committee of Denny Warda and Dr. Ann Vogel and myself and others are continuing with fundraising. And I would anticipate that fundraising will continue until the goal is met. The construction process, if authorized by you later on this year, could possibly begin this autumn. We would anticipate the underground work, the footings going in, and then the winter time period would be when Artstone would manufacture the seating tiers in their plant here in town. Those would be delivered to site in the springtime. And completion would take place in spring and summer of next year, 2020. So, the final bills won't be due until summer, possibly late summer of 2020. So fundraising will continue until the goal is met.
A comment I want to make on that. I was in attendance at the Park and Rec meeting on July 8th, and I'm that one that actually said motion to get it to come to us. But I did inform the Park and Rec board that originally, in my mind, way back in March, we were at the $500,000 mark for this first phase of the project. I informed the Park and Rec of that. We're $318,000 short. We can fundraise that much?
The fundraising group is optimistic that funds will continue to come in. And, with the amount of time, the upcoming months that we have available, 2 tax years for philanthropists here in 2019 and 2020, that I think I'm confident that we'll be able to pull this thing together.
I mean, I realize, we authorize it to go out for bids and whatnot. We're not committed to anything. I believe the numbers are actually gonna come in higher than the projection because of construction costs escalating at 10% a year. It's a lot of money.
Is this the right time of the year to bid? I mean, isn't normally winter, you get a much better response on your overall bid costs?
Well, Jonathan, do you want to
Yeah,
address that?
good evening, President Schmitz and council. I think that's probably a fair statement. The benefit to the way that, the construction schedule is set up with this project is that, that the contractor could get in this fall and do some of the preliminary earthwork. It would also allow for Artstone to use some of their slower months to produce the material. And then the majority of the contractor's work would be coming next year with some of those bigger improvements. So they should be anticipating for that work to happen in the spring when they have more availability. So hopefully the numbers would reflect that.
Okay. The other question I had on this particular project, say we do run into not having enough finances, can it be split into like 2 phases? Is that something that you've thought about or talked about at all? I know that's not a preference, but I mean, is that a possibility?
Yeah. You want to speak on that?
Certainly, there are possibilities of some alternates in the bid package. I mean, you could either go with the entire bid package for one number, or you could, tell staff and the consultant to provide one or more alternates, such as the shade structure is estimated at $150,000 on the top row.
And I realize, coming back costs more with construction. I get that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Can this be shrunk down? I mean, we're talking 30% over budget. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Original $500,000 I was informed on.
Yeah, so the kind of the direction that we took with this was to try to maximize seating and get something that is going to be able to handle some larger events. That being said, there are opportunities to reduce some of the seating areas. Probably the easiest way to, as Tom mentioned, to trim some of the costs would be to look at potentially a future shade structure installation. We could still construct the amphitheater and put the footings in for the shade structure, and then the shade structure itself could come in the future. And that's kind of one of the really big expenses with this project is the structural element of the shade structure itself. So that would be one good way. Again, like you said, we could also trim a block or so off of each end and shave some money off. Unfortunately, those are some of the cheaper elements of the project is the seating blocks and the concrete. So you're not going to save a whole lot of money by just bringing in the sides a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Again, I understand that part, but I'd like to see 1, 2, 3, 5 alternates because that's a lot of over budget. That's just my thought.
Mm-hmm. Another part of the project was the kind of mirroring that staircase to the south of the amphitheater. There's that existing staircase, and part of the project was to mirror that staircase across the sculpture there and kind of double the staircases down to the formal garden. That could be another element that could be looked at as an alternate. So that on the right side of your screen there, that staircase kind of was an addition to the project that could be looked at as an alternate. That I would estimate to be about $53,000 for that staircase, $55,000.
So all of this was in the first bid that we got. All of everything here was also calculated in that first bid, or nothing was added since then?
From the conceptual plan
yeah,
of
from the conceptual.
2013,
Yep.
I think the only thing that we really added since then would be the second staircase from German Street past the Bohemian Monument down to the formal garden area. You know, that is one of the few remaining elements of the park's master plan that has not been completed. There's yet another element in between those two staircases of a waterfall, flowing waterfall. But I don't anticipate bringing that to the council in the future. So it was just this second staircase that is in the master plan, and the base is down by the gardens, and there's area up by the Bohemian Monument to do that. So, you know, one possibility would be to bid this entire project out and see what comes at bid opening. You know, we'll come to you at bid opening, and if at that point, you can still make a decision at that point to go back to piecemeal or piecing it together or reducing the scope at that point.
I guess I agree with you. I think we need to bid it. We really have no handle on what the numbers are gonna be until we bid it. And then we can make decisions after that. But I think we have alternatives or alternates that we need to consider, you know.
Yep. Yes. You know, one other aspect about this, the bidding and the contractor's opinion on a project like this is it's a very liberal schedule. So, I mean, if we had a tight timeline for these contractors to do this project, prices go up. But we're thinking about maybe a Labor Day next year, ribbon cutting and completion of the term of the contract. So contractors have, you know, a year to get this project done, and that normally will reduce the cost, the pressure, and the stress on a contractor.
Again, I'm okay with going out for the specs and the bids, but just a note to the general public, that's all we're authorizing. It's not the project is a green light, go, we're gonna do this for $725,000. Just to go on record saying that.
Yes, I agree with you on that one. We need to find out a cost, and that's the only way we can do it.
So when we ask for these bids, you're gonna ask them to bid out a lot of the areas that you just talked about that we could potentially trim if we need to.
Alternates.
I'd like to see the canopy and the staircase, because what you're telling me, that's 200 grand right off the bat, as an alternate.
Okay, that's not what I had heard, but if that's what you,
Yeah, I think we need to do the alternates.
we need alternates. Okay, so the shade structure and the second staircase past the Bohemian Monument, those two alternates. Okay.
Is that
With that, I'll, motion to approve the plan specification and authorize solicitation of bids, adding 1 to 5 alternates, 1 to 2 alternates.
1 to 400. I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck, Tom. Item 5.3, amendments to the Kraft Minnesota Investment Fund. Mr. Schnobert.
Yes, earlier in the meeting, you authorized an extension in the compliance date for Kraft Smith grant. As a result, we'll need to amend 2 documents. The first is the grant contract, and that's between the city and the state of Minnesota. And it's some very minor changes. We've included the documents that in your packet, and then the second document that needs to be amended is the loan agreement, and that's between the city and Kraft Heinz Foods Company. And again, that's some fairly minor changes. All of it, I believe, is 2 pages. And it's been reviewed by Roger, and we don't have any issues with those changes.
Thank you, Dave.
I'll offer the resolution waiving the reading, approving the amendments to the documents.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Offer the resolution, waive the reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item 6.1, B&L Bar Alley closure during Crazy Days. That's July 27th and 28th.
I'll offer the resolution, waive the reading.
Second.
We have a motion and second off the resolution, waive the reading. Any more discussion?
Mr. President, just if I can comment on this, this is scheduled to take place the same time as the street dance, which would be in front of this bar. And I've had some discussions with our chief regarding this. I've personally, because our office is right next door, I've personally observed a number of times during which patrons of this bar have been consuming alcohol outside of the 4-foot area on the sidewalk and in the alley when it's not been authorized. My understanding is that the chamber has asked for this street dance with the understanding there's not going to be any alcohol consumed there. The alley leads directly into the area where the band is going to be, and it's the responsibility of the licensee to not allow his patrons to go off the designated area. And I'm going to be asking law enforcement to be monitoring this, so people would be attending the dance. Hope they have a great time, but this is not polka days. It's not opening up the streets to drinking on our public streets. So just have those comments in mind so that everyone's aware of how this is supposed to work, if you decide to approve this.
Any more discussion?
Question I have for our city attorney, so in the primary issues and whatnot, if we actually added that to a condition besides our law enforcement, but that the B&L is responsible?
They are. I mean, that's something.
Yeah, they are, but.
If they are going to have employees watching the alley to make sure people aren't leaving with drinks, watching their front door, the 4-foot area where it's allowed, if they're doing that, it would be prudent for them to take those actions, because otherwise they'd be in violation of their license, their patrons would be in violation. Our city code specifically prohibits taking the drinks off the designated site.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any more discussion? Anybody?
We
Nope.
have a resolution.
We have,
Are we-
yeah,
okay,
it's
we have
good.
You already have.
Oh,
Yep,
Yep.
you
we
ready
had
to
a motion
call
and a
the
second.
vote?
All right. We had a motion and a second off resolution, waived reading. Any more discussion then? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Yep. Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item 6.2, Newham Fire Department services for Flying Dutchman motorcycle hill climb. And that is for August 25th, 2019.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 6.3, Newham Fire Department service for the, oop, that one didn't move yet. Newham Fire Department attend the Lions Club Fly-In Breakfast, and that's for September 8th, 2019.
I'll offer the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 6.4, set a public hearing date for the noise variance for Lamplighter Sports Bar and Grill. And that, I believe, is for August 6, 2019.
So this is a noise variance for an event that'll be held in the parking lot behind Lamplighter. They're going to have music back there until 10 p.m., so they need an hour variance. And I have no issues with them doing this private event behind their establishment. So I recommend establishing the public hearing date of August 6, 2019.
And I did state it wrong. That actually, the entertainment's on August 17, 2019. So
I'll offer the motion to schedule the public hearing for August 6, 2019.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 6.5, set a public hearing for the 2018 MSAS Improvement Project. Mr. Kaler.
Mr. President, this is the second project that was completed last summer. We'd like to send out the special assessment notices and set the public hearing for this as well.
That's for September 3rd, 2019.
Correct.
Any more discussion?
I'll move it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Oop. Item 6.6. Use the parking stalls for the New Ulm Craft and Vendor Events Board. That's for Saturday, August 24th, 2019. Chris?
So the New Ulm Crafts and Vendor want to use the parking lot adjacent to us to use all 44 stalls that aren't leased to hold a craft fair from 11 to 4 on a Saturday. So I don't have an issue with them using those stalls to do a fair in the downtown area.
So this is something new. They've not done this before,
And not to my
No, this is
knowledge.
a one-time event. According to them, the only time they're going to be asking to use the parking lot for an event like this. But I don't want to hold them to that because I think if it's a successful event, they may ask to do it again. But it's a one-time event right now from 11 to 4, and I don't have any issues with them using the parking lot.
so it leaves the back 2 rows next
The
to
lease, yeah.
Broadway that are going to be available for the public.
Well, those are lease spots.
They're leased already.
Those are lease spots, so the lease spots will be available.
People that want to come to the fair won't have no place to park. So
Park
they'll have to
park on the street.
Have to park on the street.
Across the street over there. Yeah. Again, this is kind of one of those things where the more and more events that we have downtown,
Right.
more and more residents
Yep, I
are going to have
support
to
it.
get used
Absolutely.
to parking on the street instead of in a parking lot. So this is kind of one of those ways we start easing the public into using parking on the street when it's available.
One question for the city attorney. We don't have any liability issues?
No, I don't
Okay.
see that there would be on this. No.
All right.
Any more questions, concerns? Seeing none, entertain a motion.
I'll offer a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 6.7, Park and Rec Department donations.
Okay, I'm gonna offer the resolution, waive the reading to accept the donations offered to the City of New Ulm Park and Rec Department as outlined. Bicycle repair station, $1,670 cash from George Glotzbach. German Park, $25 cash from Ken and Vicky Roloff. German Park paver stones and improvements, $100 cash honoring Warren and Yvonne Blomquist and the family of Kathy Winchell. Days of Play sponsorship for 2019, $100 cash from New Ulm Real Estate, Kim Hansen Realtor, total of $1,895.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to offer the resolution, waived reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item 6.8, New Ulm Fire Department donations.
I'll offer the resolution, waive the reading to accept $38.80.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's a resolution.
Opposed, oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Got a motion. Offer the resolution, waived reading. Any more discussion on that?
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item 6.9, installation of a metal portrait of Christian Prignitz. I can't even pronounce it, but I'm sure our friend here will correct me on it, on the power plant building.
So
Kenny, you gonna talk, or Tom?
Let me start out on this.
Okay.
So this is a weird request coming to council as it will be on a PUC building. The reason it'll come to council or that it's here at council right now is there is a component of this that it's security cameras facing German Park. Doing surveillance, I guess, on the band shell to help prevent graffiti. So the Public Utilities Commission approved the request to put it on their building, and Parks and Rec Commission also approved this request. It did originally go before those two commissions as a 6 to 8 foot portrait, but it was later emailed to us that it's actually probably going to be a 12 by 12 installation that'll be on that building. And so part of that will be, I will be reaching out to ISG or Bolton and Mink to see what it would cost to do an engineering study, because that'll be part of the funding that Danny would have to come up with to attach it to the building. And so I'll reach out in the next day or so to get that, but I'll turn it over to Denny so he can explain the sculpture and why he would like it up on top of the cooling.
President Smith and council members, thank you so much for this opportunity to appeal to you to agree with me that the man who laid out and designed this city needs to be recognized more than just a very simple cemetery footstone that I had a hard time finding. This man designed and built this, designed this town that could be built for more than 150 years without any change. And only one other city that we know of that have this distinction is New York City. It's quite a compliment. Having a metal aluminum portrait of him, and the portrait is proposed to be approximately 8 feet in diameter. And the backing would be a composite that has an 80-year life. It would be a contrasting color to the one that I have over here on the chair. Since that, my appeal to the public utilities and the park, I was awaiting the determination on how large the surface area would be to include his authorized and actual signature carved out of the same aluminum. And that would amount to about a total of 12 foot by about 2 foot. So it would be about 10 foot tall total with this 8 foot portrait on top of that panel. The great advantage of this, besides being a beautiful piece of art, is that a descriptive little message would be posted, hopefully inside the pavilion, that would explain who this man is and why he should be honored. And along with it would be a copy of the plat, which he originally drew, and I had a chance to photograph up at the courthouse, but is in such bad deterioration that it's almost impossible to copy. The important thing for the park is that the portrait will be illuminated at night with solar panel power, and the eyes will be the camera protecting his creation. So German Park will have all-night protection, and I think that alone is worthy of consideration as far as a project like this goes. The funding will be, I've been assured that the funding is there for some donations.
Anybody have any questions?
I've got a question on it. You know, it's gone through, winds up in our lap. Okay, it went to the Public Utilities Commission. I got my question answered why it even came to the Park and Rec Commission, because it's not on park property. Didn't go through the Monuments and Cemetery Commission, which that's where I thought it should have went. Right. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Public utilities can own buildings, not property, correct?
No, they,
I don't think they own the building either, right? Technically.
I think that they do. I
Yes.
believe that
They
they
own
own, they own the building, they own their trucks.
But they don't own the land.
But not the land.
But they can't own land.
I believe I'm correct on that, that
I'd
they
have
can
to
just own the building.
Research that.
But in my mind, I mean, council's gonna vote on it tonight. Why did it even come here to city council to make the decision when PUC okayed it? Their building, put it up.
It's the security camera portion of it. Who's responsible for that? Where does that security feed go? Do you want a security camera watching the park? I mean, it's really that other portion of it that no one had any questions on, but I feel the council should be aware that there's going to be cameras watching a park. I mean, is that going to be a direct feed to the police station? Is that a feed inside the PUC? I mean, where does that recording go? And do you want a camera watching the park. Is kind of the question of why it's
Well,
here.
I guess my question would be, who's funding the cameras? Is that something that we're funding, or is Denny, are you funding cameras with
That's-
this?
that's
for
included.
With a fund for maintaining these?
Are we just talking a web? oops,
I'm not
excuse me,
going to
a
share the
webcam?
technology that is involved here.
It's just a webcam, right? That you can go online and look up and watch?
I don't
He'd
think
rather
so.
not say.
No.
No,
Oh.
my understanding, Mr. President, my understanding is the way this is being presented is that this would be security cameras, and the city manager's correct. When you're doing that, the visuals get downloaded someplace. You have to have equipment to do that. Presumably, someone would have the opportunity to review it. I don't know who's gonna be responsible for that. It's gotta be destroyed after a certain period of time and renewed. I don't know if we're gonna have 2 cameras in both eyes, if they'll be tracking people as they use the park. But this is going to be illuminated all night, so we're going to look at the visage of this person, whether you want to or not. But I guess if it's their building, if they've decided to do that, that's the Public Utilities Commission. But there are costs on this. There's gonna be ongoing costs. I don't know who's responsible for cleaning it and maintaining it. I've spoken with people from the public utilities. They say with its location there and these materials, it is gonna get dirty. There's gonna be soot on it. Someone's gonna have to keep doing that. You're gonna have to have some kind of equipment to get up there and do it. I don't think that the PUC wants to be doing that. There's just a lot of thought, I think, to go into this.
I mean, the city attorney touched on those. That was my next thing about the structural analysis. I mean, that was taken care of with PUC, answered their questions. Who's gonna do that?
That will be taken care of by engineering.
Our engineers or a structural engineer?
The people who are creating it.
Okay. And then the liability, that's always my question. Is PUC liable for it if it falls off?
Well, when you do the structural analysis through an engineering firm, they carry the liability.
Well, and I
'cause
would,
they're
again,
signing
if
it.
it's, you know, to the extent the city has got some role in this through these cameras, I think the council would have some say, but it really does kind of fall back on the PUC. I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't know if, I would think the PUC would be selecting the structural engineer. They're not leaving it up to an artist to decide if the building can withstand this. So just as it came up with the anchors for the holiday garlands, there are structural engineers who will do this. It's not cheap, but they would have to presumably provide an opinion on what might be involved, and they're gonna have to get paid for that.
I mean, are we better off just looking at this as a project to approve that he can go ahead with his project, but he has to come back with conditions, you know, that he's met our expectations for engineering, where the data is going to go, how are the funding, and, you know, the numbers, and so it's going to be self-sustaining, or it's not going to be come back to us financially?
Well, I don't think he has to come back with us with
No.
structural, because we have nothing to do with
Okay.
that. Just, I agree with you probably on
Well,
the camera
I
situation.
think, yeah.
You know,
this
there's
is- I mean,
some-
this is-
some
I-
unknowns.
As far, I don't know if anyone other than Mr. Warda is behind this, but this is one person's presentation on this significant permanent structure he wants to have overlooking the city of New Ulm. And he's proposing it's going to include security cameras. The council doesn't have to accept that. I mean, if you don't want to have security cameras, they're not gonna be in there. But if you do want them, if you're agreeing on it, there's gotta be a plan. Where do they go? What, you know, who is responsible for the ongoing costs of that? When those cameras die, who's gonna pay to go up there and replace them or fix them?
I guess
You need to
my-
think this thing
yeah.
through.
I guess my question is can the structure be done in just no security cameras? I guess I don't know where that concern came from, or if Park and Rec is having concerns about vandalism in the park, or do we need the security cameras? I mean, has he talked to you, Tom, about that regarding the security cameras, and what's your thoughts on that?
Tom Schmitz, Park and Recreation Department. The security camera concept with this project is just an idea. that has to be further vetted and further researched. It could come to fruition that it's not a good idea up there on the portrait. Often security cameras are better closer to the areas, the actual areas you're surveilling, the band shell, the restrooms, and so on. So the whole security camera situation is still under consideration and under research.
And
May not come to fruition on the portrait.
I guess I would
And-
support like a webcam because you see them all over. You know, if you could
If you
zoom in or something.
listen carefully to what I said, the rumor is that the eyes are cameras.
Okay. Sounds good.
Mine is just, who monitors it? Where does it go? Who's paying for the system?
It's,
The
the rumor,
The rumor.
The rumor is there
Don't
will
care
be
about-
cameras.
there is, yeah.
I guess we got that squared away.
But that technology does exist today digitally.
Technology
to
does exist.
Shoot it from that right into this computer, and you only need to look at it if there's an issue that pops up. I mean, the technology's so
I
good now.
guess, you know, we don't have security cameras in any other place, and I guess, yeah, I don't know if this is, I understand that the rumor is, but I would say no security cameras
Right,
at this
I
point.
agree.
Danny, one of the things that when I looked at this just tonight now, if I'm walking in the park and I see that and I'm like, who is that guy? Now you're talking about the information plaque being where? Where would the information be about this individual?
The exact location has not been determined, but there would be an informational interpretive sign in an appropriate location in the park. But the exact size, shape, and location of
Okay.
the interpretive sign has not been yet resolved or
So,
determined.
Mr. Schmitz, as people are driving down Minnesota Street or driving
Who's that
down
guy?
Third North, and they see this beaming image at 9 o'clock at night when it's dark out, they're not gonna know who it is. All right. Thank you.
In any event, a camera anywhere would have to be coordinated with any of the others.
Right.
And you said there's gonna be a plaque. I would like to see that go to the Monuments and Cemetery Commission. I mean, that's what our charter says, and we created it for, and out of the one I thought it should have went to, it didn't go to.
Well, actually, I think, excuse me for interrupting, but I think this is a monument.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's on a PUC building, it's still a monument in New Ulm on underlying property of the city, and I think it should go to that commission.
That's how I kind of was reading it when I read the information in front of us, that it was going to come to the Cemetery and Monuments Commission.
But we'd still have to approve it at the city council.
Correct.
Right, after they've
After
made a
they've-
recommendation, yeah.
I was told it was not a monument, so.
I
by-
guess it's.
By a city official.
It's,
What would make it a monument? Roger.
Well, I think it's some, I don't know if the Bohemian statue went to that commission. It should have. This is no different than that. This is no different than if you were putting up a statue or a plaque anywhere, especially on public property. I think that's what that commission is there for, to have someone take a look at these things so that there's some oversight and recommendation. That's why that commission exists.
Okay. Well, it'd just be another step and then come back. You okay with that, Denny?
One more step.
I've put in a lot of time on this already, and one more meeting wouldn't bother me, but.
Was there talk to any about putting, underneath that sign, his name and then New Ulm Original Architect or something like that, so that, I don't know, I'm just asking.
That'll be on the information sign, that, we're
But
hoping.
nobody can see that at night.
Wouldn't be able to read it up there at night anyway.
Yeah, that's right, I was, well, it could be lit, just as well as the sign's gonna be lit, but.
Just his signature, I think, will identify him as. But anyway, it is unique in a sense that it isn't really a monument because it adorns a part of a public utilities building. It's not much different than a portrait of any kind that might be painted on the side of a building. So it it's questionable as to whether it's, by definition, is it a monument?
Yeah.
I kind of feel it's a dedication to a New Ulm person, history, monument.
It's
kind
a
type
monument,
It's a
right?
monument.
It's no
Yeah,
different
it's
than
a
if you were putting up
dedication.
a statue. It's a two-dimensional physical representation that's hanging on a public building. This is a monument.
Well, would we be tabling this and then ask him to bring it back to the Cemetery and Monuments Commission and for future date for a meeting?
Sounds good to me.
I think
that a
their
motion?
support would be.
I guess that would be my
Then-
motion. To have Denny present this to the Cemetery and Monuments Commission, and then we'd hear for their recommendation how the council should proceed for the future for this.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you, Denny.
Thanks, Denny.
Thank you, Denny.
Item 6.1, preliminary official statement for the GOPIRF Bond Series 2019. Nicole?
This is just a copy of the statement that will go out to potential bidders for the bond sale that will take place on August 6th. So it contains all the details and, of the bonds and the payback period.
Any more discussion? Seeing none? All in
Offer
favor?
the- Oh, I'll go ahead and offer the motion.
Oh, we didn't have
Second.
one, sorry. Rushing this. We have a motion and a second?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. With no more business, meeting adjourned.